Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon and I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University. Welcome to vlog 284. How do I know it's time to move institutions for work? Fantastic request, this one. Have you noticed as we've moved through the tail end, let's hope, of the pandemic, that the requests are coming about the nature of work and the future of work, short-term, medium-term and long-term. And today is no exception. And this vlog comes via request from FuzzLover69. FuzzLover, hello. I think I'm so impressed. I think that wins the award for the best internet handle of the year. And can I say profound respect to FuzzLover69 and the 68 other fuzz lovers out there. My respects to you and your kin. Now, FuzzLover69 asked me, quote, Tara, I wonder if you might consider doing one on a topic I'm currently pondering. When is the right time or the right circumstances to bite the bullet and move to a different institution? From my perspective, I'm in the UK, I'm a lecturer, and I've been in that role for nearly 12 years. I have multiple publications in journals, chapters in multiple textbooks from recognised academic publishers, been a program leader, have all the right qualifications, have brought in external funding, and in short have a model academic CV. I first applied internally for promotion 8 years ago into my career and I was rejected. Then again at 10 years in and was rejected again. Each time the reasons were totally unrelated to the actual promotion criteria. Under such circumstances, it felt, and it still feels, as though I'm becoming a hopeless task. I want to back myself, and I want to believe I am worth more than how I appear to be viewed internally to my university. And I believe this might be in part due to the fact that I was quite young when I was appointed in my 20s. And perhaps some of the senior posts don't quite realise that I'm not the young, inexperienced academic anymore. So what do you think? When is it time to take that risk and say, I'm done with where I currently am? When is it time to move on? End of quote. Oh yes! Now, FuzzLover69, this is an entree to a really great question about movement, academic movement, but also employment movement. Now, for my PhD students out there who are interested in transferring institutions during a PhD, there's an earlier vlog called Transfer to help you move during a PhD. There's also a vlog about mobility itself, the very nature of academic mobility that I recorded at the University of Macau. Hi to all my mates in Macau. I hope I'll see you at some point in the next few years. And I recorded that in Macau. So those two vlogs are available if you're interested in sort of mobility in a generic sense, or you're interested in transferring during a PhD. The gig today is different. This is a much more direct request about work. When is it time to move institutions or industries for work? Now, this is a really timely topic because I've got a large number of PhD students that are finishing this year. It's been a big finishing year and they're all thinking about movement, and we're having conversations about, really deep ones actually, about the nature of work and how to get them into the system, get them into a post and what happens next. So whether you are experienced in your academic career, hello colleagues, whether you're in a PhD or just about to finish a PhD and working out what the next step is, this is the gig today. And can I say it's one of those gigs that I had been collecting studies for some time. So this is one of the piles of paper on my office upstairs. And this pile of papers investigated some longitudinal but also some qual studies about what has happened to the academic workplace, what has happened to the workplace more generally during and now after the pandemic. And there's some amazing research there. So this is a timely session. I'll just start with a couple of caveats if I can. Firstly, I need to acknowledge the amazing work of the late great Professor John Urry. He created mobility studies, and therefore if this is a thing you're interested in, I recommend the journal Mobilities to you. It's a ripper. Now, John Urry developed, if you will, the key maxim in our understanding of mobility. Those in power are mobile, those without power are immobile. Good mantra to consider. So therefore, whenever I do talk about mobility or movement, we have to remember always that the ability to even consider moving is an act of power. So when I'm talking with my students about moving and the importance of moving for work, I'm very well aware that I am offering them and making statements from an empowered position. Now, I know that colleagues with caring responsibilities, whether they be caring responsibilities for children, for parents, for friends, for significant others, your mobility is severely truncated because you have taken on a powerful series of responsibilities, and I respect you for that. You are doing a service for the planet, you are doing a service for society. And the challenge is the consequences of that powerful choice that you have made, a caring choice, is that it limits your ability to take up work in particular locations. And this means you are much more limited in your selection of workplaces and selection of employers. And therefore everything's a bit harder, including moving universities. And it becomes increasingly difficult, particularly if you're in a city with very few universities. And of course there are some regional universities where there is only one university, and it's often the primary employer in that city, and there just aren't a lot of other options. That's the challenging situation. And I just wanted to offer one more caveat before I move into the big discussion of when and how to move jobs. And it is a gendered variable. And can I just say, for all my non-binary identifying colleagues and my trans colleagues, hello. I'm also collecting, one of my other piles of papers upstairs is particularly looking at the very rare studies of workers, workplaces, and the trans community and non-binary identifying community. There are some studies, chapters or sections of chapters in books, but that's an area I'm watching. I can't offer a commentary on that at this point because I don't have the evidence. So just know that I'm working on it. It's on the floor in my office, but we're needing more evidence there. Okay, now, therefore, so when I'm dealing with gender, sadly, I'm really dealing with a binarised environment at the moment, for which I apologise. Now, first thing I need to say, it's hard for anybody to be promoted, especially at the moment. But of course, academic women have a much lower promotion success rate than men, full stop. And that's been in existence for 40 years. Okay, so this is not a new thing. So for women to be promoted, they have to be, and you've guessed it, they have to move institutions to be promoted. They can't get it from the internal promotion mechanism. They have to apply for another job, and that's how they move up in seniority. Men, of course, can be promoted internally and it's going fine. Now, the only weird footnote to the studies that I've just presented there is that, and this is extraordinary, women have a greater chance of being a Deputy Vice-Chancellor, DVC, through promotion in internal processes. So male DVCs are hired outside of the organisation. So if you want to be a male DVC, you're appointed from outside, right? For women, one of the ways, and of course there aren't a lot of female DVCs, but they're promoted from within. Why does that exist? Now, one interpretation of this very odd state of affairs is that for a woman to be trusted in a leadership position, she has to be known and tested and trialled within the organisation. So research shows, again, for 40 years, this is a no-brainer, this is the obvious stuff. Research shows that appointment committees, like promotion committees, appoint people just like themselves. They're asking questions and they're looking for answers that nest within their particular experience and their particular contexts. So what this means is like hires like. And with men dominating still, let's hope through my lifetime this changes, but with men still dominating professorships and also leadership roles in our universities, you can see the problem that we're in at the moment. Like hires like. Therefore, noting my two caveats about power and mobility and immobility and the gender variable here, Fuzz Lover 69, let's get into this. Okay. Now, firstly, the pandemic matters a great deal to this conversation. Now, let me go into these studies, okay? So, Aaron McEwen, who's the Research and Advisory Vice President for Gartner. Gartner is that great research technology firm. I have enormous respect for Gartner. I worked for them about 15 years ago. Now, Gartner reported in August 2021 that 83% of organisations have a higher turnover rate today than they did a year ago. 83% higher turnover rate today than a year ago. That's crucial. And the pattern therefore has been, by the Gartner analysis, that we've got basically around the world people have hung on to their jobs during the pandemic, and as it's starting to break, they're getting out of Dodge. Now, this is certainly an incredibly wide-scale change. The Chronicle of Higher Education did a survey with Fidelity Investments, and they produced a study titled, quote, "On the Verge of Burnout," end of quote. Pretty clear what they're arguing. So this study confirmed that more than half of the academics that were surveyed intended to either change careers or retire early. Okay. So we've got these two studies. So what we can expect is we're going to see a high rate of turnover in appointments in the next year. And that means for you, yes you, some opportunities are going to emerge. Now they may be casual jobs, they may be contract jobs, so they may replace tenured academics with contract academics. They may do that. But the point is, what I've been worried about is I haven't seen movement in the system. Now we are seeing movement in the system. Also, the recruitment firm Robert Half's director, Nicole Gorton, stated that workers have used the pandemic period to upskill. So they've used the pandemic period to gain higher qualifications, just like you. Well done. So therefore, the job market is going to be volatile. And we have to approach this volatility. We have to ask some very serious questions of ourselves in the management of this volatility. So let's get into my 10 tips. We're going hard today, going hard for you. I'm asking some difficult questions about you and your life today. Let's get you ready for this volatility so that when an opportunity comes, and it looks like it will, you know what you're going to do about it. And this applies in different forms for our PhD students, for our early career researchers just out of a PhD, crucial group, and also our experienced colleagues. Hi, it's been a tough pandemic, hasn't it? Rock and roll. Let's do it. So, point one, you need or you want to relocate, right? So academics can move, academics do move in jobs. That's what we do. Many of you moved institutions, maybe even move cities to undertake a PhD, and then of course those of you that are in postdocs, you go to postdoc to postdoc to postdoc to become permadocs, and also you often have to leave your home to go and get a job. Now, most of my 9 jobs, I've had 9 jobs in my academic career, have involved me moving to a city that I had no intention of ever living in. So I moved for the job. So it wasn't like, oh, I've always wanted to live there. It's like the job appeared and I moved there, okay? So if you've taken a job like that, and I have on a few occasions, it means you are away from your family, you're away from your friends, relationships break up, so the divorce rate for academics is very, very high, And of course, particularly if you're in a city like that and there's not many non-academics in your circle, then it means you've gained a job, but you've happened to have lost your life. And look, no job is worth losing your life. So if that's you, so you're basically on your own and it's all a bit messy and there's just no life beyond the job, that's the time to consider moving. You've got plenty of time, no rush, but start to plan your move so you can get your life back. Do that, good luck. 2, right, you've become part of the furniture in your current institution. Now, Fuzz Lover 69, this would be you. And when I read your email, I was so moved by it, which is why I've written a vlog for you, because that was my first permanent job. I had some contracts before, but my first tenured job, what you expressed exactly happened to me. I was there for 10 years. I started as a very junior academic and I sort of crawled my way up with difficulty up to an associate professor role. I had to move countries to get the chair. Had to move to England to get the chair, right. So what happened was, from my early days there, I was known as a great teacher. I had the great gift, but it ended up, interestingly, a poison chalice. I'd been there a year and I won the National Teaching Award. So I'd won the Prime Minister's Award for the best teacher in the country, which is terrific, and that was a year in. But the challenge with that is, for the rest of my career at that institution, I was the bird that taught first year students, right? And of course, during those 10 years, I'd written 8 books, okay? And there was no space to engage with or even care about or even know about the research. They had a box that they put me in as a young person, and there was no ability to get out of that box for the senior crew to see that actually I was a different person now. And it got pretty rough at the end, and that's a Brabazon, that's an Australian understatement. Got pretty rough at the end, and looking back on it, there's no way I should have stayed there for 10 years. About 6 or 7 years, that was the point I needed to get out of Dodge. Now, I know a lot of my friends have done these incredibly long stints in universities, 20 plus years at one campus, wow. And of course, what's happened, and these are some of my best mates in the world, right? They are treated like a piece of furniture, and they're not given the chance to change or to transform. So you know what? Leave. Really, leave. Become the person that you know you can be and continue to learn. 3, you're not earning a proper wage. Now, hi, if you're on a casual contract, if you're on a 0-hour contract, hi everybody, then you know what? You've got a right to earn a proper wage. So if your city, if your institution is not allowing you as an academic to earn a living wage, then it's time to move and get a living wage. Now, it's time to recognise that the skills that you've gained in your PhD will move well. So move institutions, move cities, or indeed move industries. Also, and this is a big point I hope comes through as a theme through the vlog this week, research the typical salary for your city and the expenses of that city in terms of rent and utilities. So whenever I'm thinking about moving for a job, so whenever I see an ad, to be honest with you, before I even think, oh, can I do that? Oh, that seems interesting. Before I even start an application, I look at the real estate. I look at the real estate in that town or that city. I look at the transportation system in that town or that city. Because if we can't afford to live in that city, then don't move there. The best job in the world will make you miserable if you can't pay your rent, if you're endlessly in debt. So when I'm thinking about jobs, and this might not be useful to you, but I'll put it out there. When I'm thinking about jobs, I'm not hugely interested, to be frank, about the ranking of the university. I have zero interest in the ranking of an institution. I'm interested in the integrity of the work. But also I'm interested in, can I afford to live there? Can I plan a future there? 4, you dread going to work. Hi. Are you waking up every morning hating that you've got to go to that damn place and work? Is that you? Time to go. We know the studies of the scale of the bullying and the harassment and the discrimination and the abuse that exists in the contemporary workplace, okay? And I absolutely understand the daily horror of really hating a job. Really hating, I've been there, really hating a job, being frightened all the time. Now, if that's your situation, apply for everything that comes up and get out. This is a desperate situation, but the point I want to make to you today, and I know a lot of you are in some bad places at the moment, that I don't want you to get lost in the desperation, okay? Be clear what is important to you beyond survival mode. So if you're not getting beyond survival mode, if you're just living in despair, then what's going to happen is you're going to move from toxic environment to toxic environment to toxic environment. You're going to bounce. But if you are lying in bed hating the very idea of the work you have to do during that day, hating every single minute of that day, then get out of there. I also want to log the other people that, what the research is showing, that people dislike their job. So, their skills are not being used. They struggle to find meaning behind the work. They no longer believe in the values and the practices of the workplace. Look, okay, I understand that people leave for those reasons. Okay, you don't like it, well, it's work. But if you're in the situation where you're getting lost in fear or anxiety or depression, that for me is the most worrying state, okay? And what I would say to you is get out, really get out. But don't move from one nightmare to another. I have done that. So make a decision to move. Now, what I need you to do for me is work out what has gone wrong in the current working environment. What makes it difficult? Is it a bad relationship with a boss, or pretty toxic co-workers, the nastiness, the labeling, the gossip? Is it that sort of thing? Is it the teaching timetable? Is it the workload? Is it a lack of progression? Is it chaotic management? So start with what has gone wrong and then use that information. Mobilize that information for me rather than sit in despair. Mobilize the information and plan for your next post. 5, you're doing the same stuff every day for years. Academic life, if it is a great working life, and it can be, it's about challenge and growth and change. Now, with the lack of promotion that's happening in universities and the casual and the contract work that's dominating our universities, work is incredibly repetitive and dull. Full stop. The best way to find out if you're locked into this type of workplace is to ask yourself a very, very simple question. When was the last time you learnt something new, innovative, that changed you? When was the last time you learnt something? Now, if it's been a while, then it's probably time to move. But no desperation here. It's time to prepare to move. So invest in learning skills that will enable your movement. Remember that study we started with? We've got a bunch of people that use the pandemic to upskill. You have to be in their number. And if you're going to move, then you've got to add some skills to transform your career. But if you're teaching the same course for years, you're hitting the same barriers in your research career day after day, if you feel stuck, then your workplace is not allowing you to grow, and you may quite rightly feel resentful. So force yourself. Earn your way out of Dodge. Force yourself to learn new skills. Whether it's a MOOC, whether it's LinkedIn Learning, freshen yourself up so you're ready to move on. 6, recognize the value of stamina and persistence. Now, I'm a big believer in moving workplaces, changing your workplace if it becomes toxic. I'm a big believer in movement. But what I would say to you is that in the last 10 years, higher education universities have become incredibly volatile. It's astonishing. So that means if you've got a nasty boss, if you've got a dreadful supervisor, or you've got that truly dreadful, gossipy person in the office next door, you know those people, it's like, oh wow, and nasty to everybody, terribly self-important. We've all worked with those people. Now, the weird thing is those people may leave. And if you wait long enough, you might actually outlast these people. And universities are changing radically in terms of personnel every 5 years. In fact, to be honest, it's a bit faster than that. Now, I was in one of those situations where it was a dreadful place. It was a nasty little place. And then a head of school and his mates, and it was one of those situations where the head of school had the mates, created insiders and treated everybody else dreadfully. We've all worked in those environments. But then the head of school left and the two mates scurried after him, right? So that little group left, changed everything, changed the entire institution. So noting the volatility of the sector now and the volatility that is coming, it may not be a bad idea if you're reasonably okay and it's just a couple of really bad people, hang in there and wait a bit longer. And if there's one dreadful person, they do leave, and then your entire job will transform. 7, the diversity of workplaces and careers leaves fingerprints on you. Now, I've worked around the world for most of my career, and it's changed me. It has made me a much better academic. And let me tell you what the mobility has given me. I've had to arrive time and time again in a new location, and I've had to teach brand new topics, brand new ideas, brand new courses every time, over and over again. I went through my CV on the weekend. I've taught 72 courses through my career. I've taught some more than once, but I've taught a lot of them once. And that means I've gained confidence in managing new experiences over and over again. And that has stopped me being complacent. Sitting in Adelaide, sitting in Australia, oh, Australia's the best country in the world. Look, it's not. Sort yourself out, right? Oh, Adelaide. Or like travel teaches you that all sorts of places are really interesting, and don't assume that one is any better or greater than anything else. That's just nonsense. And it means that I've never got stuck in habits. I've developed incredible friendships. It's the friendships that have meant the most. And this incredible international community of friends and colleagues changed my life. And that's why mobility increases your employability, right? Because you have to have an adaptability of mind. And you have demonstrated that you've learned how to manage diverse experiences and diverse people. But remember, the powerful can move, and I'm speaking from an empowered position. 8. So let's get into the deep costs of moving. The impact of uprooting our lives continually creates profound uncertainty. I wish I was joking, but there were 10 years of my life where I would wake up in the morning and I wouldn't know what country I was in. Wish I was joking. And look, it still happens occasionally. I had a very tough weekend. I worked very hard last weekend, so I just collapsed into bed, into a sleep, and then the alarm woke me up. And when the alarm woke me up on Monday morning, I didn't know what country I was in. And that's the consequence of moving. Like, not even like, what city am I in? It's like, where am I, right? So that's a very interesting situation. And I've got my two beautiful guitars here too. My Rickenbackers, hi to the Rickenbacker people. It's always this horrific moment after you've moved where you have to open up the Rickenbacker case and see if the Rickenbacker has survived the trip. It's always for me, one day I'm going to open the Rickenbacker case from these moves, and the fretboard is just going to come off or something terrible's happened. But the Rickenbackers have survived all these moves as well. But you get a sense of, I wake up and you just don't really know where you are. And also, besides worried about your stuff, relationships can also suffer as well. And look, I've been lucky. And when I say lucky, I've been married to 2 very senior professors. And why that's lucky, and it is lucky, is I've been able to join a husband in a job. So to give you an example, Steve got a job, a professorship at the University of Brighton. And then luckily a job was advertised, no spousal, had to apply for the job and had to crawl over hundreds of broken bodies to win that job at the same institution. That's unheard of and incredibly lucky. In some North American universities it's easier, was for us, when there's a spousal policy, okay? So if you've got two people in work, which most of us do, then it's very, very challenging to make the careers operate. And long distance academic relationships are very, very difficult, very expensive, and they tend to break up. And it's almost impossible to try and get two people into one institution. And then of course, I've only been talking about two people there, then we're dealing with families. Then we're dealing with care for elderly parents, deciding when to have children, if to have children, if had children, where do they go to school, what happens to their university, what happens to their career. So if you are moving to post beyond your city and beyond your nation, always do what I describe as full life costing. Full life costing. So it's not simply a matter of a job. People can work at the poshest of universities, and I've seen thousands of cases where this happens. They're working at the poshest of universities, which of course invariably are based in the poshest of cities, and they can't afford to live there. Now, 20, 30 years ago, the very, very expensive cities where these very posh universities were didn't matter as much because you'd be in that job for 40 years. So if you had £1 million or €1 million or $1 million mortgage, you'd have 40 years to try and pay it off. Now, that's no more. My last three jobs have commenced with a restructure in the first 3 months of my arrival. One job I started, this is fantastic, brand new job, I started on the Monday. On the Wednesday, the Vice-Chancellor called a whole of institution meeting, and on the Wednesday he announced a restructure. I'd been there 3 days, okay? So we need to understand the profound volatility of this situation. We need to enact full life costing for every job and make sure you're moving with your eyes open. Okay, 9. Sort out what's important to you. This is it. So to enact this full life costing, we have to sort ourselves out. We have to think honestly about the role of work in our lives. So are you in survival mode? Hi, there's a lot of you out there. Are you in survival mode? Just grinding out a day's work to pay your bills. I hear you, I've been there. So work out what would stop this grinding nature of work. It isn't about happiness, it's not about unhappiness either, but it's about importance. What is important to you? Most significantly, what is important changes radically through your career. Now, at least twice a year, I conduct a written exercise with myself. My multiple personalities talk, and they do a written exercise. So what I do is I write out what is my type of location, type of job, type of life that I would like in 3 years' time. I write that scenario out. Then I write, okay, well, if that's the 3 year, in 1 year's time, what's the location, what's the life, what's the job? Now, what I then do, from the 3 year to the 1 year, I then work on a 12-week plan. So I pick out 4 big ideas, 4 big things, goals, if you will, and I work on those 4 things for 12 weeks that get me to where I want to be in a year. Now, I found this 12-week cycle very, very useful because it means that I'm looking at myself in the present now. So I'm not imposing what I thought was important at 20 or 30 or 40 on my reality today. And if nothing else, think about writing down what sort of location you would like to live in. The city, the university, the research and teaching career you would like. But also your personal life, and writing down what you believe is the best personal and professional mix. This is tough stuff. And create 4 clear goals today that starts you on that path. 10. Be sure that the dreadful situation at the university you're at is not a one-off situation. This is important. So the pandemic has been a truly bonkers time. Now, much of what has happened in the pandemic will stay in the pandemic. It is the Las Vegas of illnesses. But if, like Fuzz Lover 69, these problems that you're seeing have emerged over years, then you know what? It's pretty clear that it's time for a career change. Everyone can have a bad day. Everybody can send a weird email. Everybody can come to work and have a shout. Everybody can do that. But if these problems have transcended a day or a week and they've gone on for 6 months, then you know what? That's a pretty good time to leave. Now, I do urge incredible caution in being rash in leaving a job, because moving will cost you. It'll cost you dough, cost you financially, it'll cost you time, and it is incredibly, incredibly stressful. Moving house is a nightmare. Can you? I have 18,000 books in this house. Can you imagine how often I've had to pack these books up? Oh, dear me. So moving house is an absolute nightmare. And then, of course, there is the complexity. If you've got a partner, a life partner, what happens with them? What's going to go on there? So you can see what happens. One of the partners gets a job. The other finds it incredibly difficult in that location to find a job. And unless both partners make a commitment, then an employment bounce happens. In regional universities, this is called the churn. So one partner goes, takes their partner, the other partner can't get a job, and so they last about 6 months and they bounce out. So the spouse, because the spouse is miserable. So I would argue universities need to care a lot more about the spouse and about the family. That ship has sailed. But always consider a job in context. Don't ever make that rapid or rash resignation. Never, ever do it. If you're going to resign, if you're going to leave, it's a thing to plan carefully over some months. So trust me on this one. By the point you've actually got a job or a few jobs and you're making a selection, from that point, it's about 3 to 6 months where you're going to be able to actually leave that city and that university. So you've got to plan carefully. Now, remember my model, please. Apply for a lot of posts. Apply for a lot of posts and give each of those applications everything. Don't just put in a cursory one. Do the application, do a lot of applications, do them properly. But do not think that if you are successful in that job application, that you've got to take it. What I want to do for you is I want to give you choice. And choice allows you to look at your current job, your current role, with fresh eyes rather than despair. It gives you an alternative life decision. And remember that this career decision is a life decision. It's going to cost you financially. It will impact enormously on your family and your friends. So, Fuzz Lover, I hope I've been of use here. In your case, to be honest with you, I think it's a no-brainer. I would absolutely move, and your promotion, which you deserve, will come when you move institutions. Now, I hope you live in a second tier or a global city. You're in the UK, so of course cities are clustered. There's a good transportation system, so if you're in the northwest, the northeast, the southeast, London, you're fine, you're great. If you're in the southwest, that's a bit of a problematic area of the United Kingdom, but can I say, a great place to live, not much work there. So you should be able to move, and I wish you well with that. But for all our PhD students out there, our early career researchers, our colleagues in a bit of a difficult space watching this vlog, the post-pandemic research on moving jobs is showing volatility. It's also showing incredible dissatisfaction in the workplace. So I think this next year, and I back this, I think the next year is going to be very, very messy in our universities. And what I suggest to you is you use this time. Work out what's important to you. Upskill. Gain a sense of full life costing. Now, I know about moving. I've worked in 9 universities in 4 countries. I've loved the travel. I've loved it, loved living in new places. It's shocked me, it's made me, it's remade me. I'm so glad I'm not a person that's lived in one place for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I'm so glad I'm not that person. Travel has built me and I've loved it. But the cost of that is that nowhere is actually home. Nowhere's home. So for me, a job is a job is a job. It can be a great job and I appreciate it, but it's a job. And that means I don't romanticize any place or any institution. Now, I've also made mistakes in that movement, not a doubt about that. And it's allowed me to reflect on it now. And those mistakes have come from moving to a regional university with an open heart and, wanting to contribute, doing all the positive things. So moving there with an open heart and an open mind to be there a long time and make a difference. And then discovering the caste of psycho, the management structure at that university. And then, of course, from that realization, having to move quickly. And of course, then I've moved too quickly to an unstable university again. So the key is, if, like FuzzLover69, you've thought deeply about this change, then go for it. Apply for as many jobs as you can, apply for a lot of jobs, and then make a decision and go. And enjoy it, have a great time. But I always urge you, particularly if you're in a state of depression or despair, get information. Don't make any decision from despair. Get evidence, have a think, work out what's gone wrong, and make it right through clarity rather than emotion. So focus on what is important for you, what's important for your friends, what's important for your family, and then apply for as many jobs as you can to give yourself a choice. Choice is the priority. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.